and welcome to Liverpool City Region Creating Careers. On today's episode, I'm joined by Ben Wilson. Ben is a student accountant at SB&P, which is an accountancy firm based in Liverpool with offices in Liverpool City Centre and Bootle. So hi Ben, thanks for joining us today.
No worries, thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Wonderful, you too. Now, students, if you've watched Creating Careers before, you know what I'm going to say. Make sure you've completed the pre-work before you watch today's recording. If you haven't, click pause, go to the description below there. You'll find the links to everything you need, and then come back to us nice and ready to listen to all of Ben's pearls of wisdom. So just to start off, could you give us an overview of your role as a student accountant?
Yeah, so I deal, I don't want to get too technical in this, but I basically deal in accounts and audit, which is where you got very quickly, you got a business, you're basically putting together a financial report of how much money they've taken in during the year, what their profit is, what their assets and liabilities are at the end of the year. And then audits is the other side of that. So you'll take the reports and you'll basically drill into the accounts and ask for evidence for all of the balances that they have at the end of the year. So it's sort of like, financial detective work almost.
So what would you say is the best? What do you love about that role?
I love would be a strong word that I would use, but what I really like about it is it's the grounding. Really, accounting is a fantastic way to go into the business world because it's the language that the business world uses. You can't do anything in business, regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur or anything, without understanding accounting or understanding the basics of it anyway. I think I might get this stat wrong, but it's either 20 or 25% of the FTSE 100 CEOs all have accounting backgrounds or accounting degrees. So it's for me anyway, the ACA qualification I'm doing and the grounding in the work is it's so important, and it will be a great base for my later moves in careers and whatever I want to do. That's basically why.
Brilliant. So if you go into that kind of role, that's not necessarily the role that you'll continue to do for the rest of your career. You just mentioned there about a qualification. Could you just tell the students a little bit more about that qualification?
Yes, it's the Chartered Accountancy qualification. There's a few sort of awarding bodies that you can go through. I did do mine with ACA. Broadly speaking, they're all the same. They've all got sort of 12, 15 exams you have to do over a 2-3 year period, and a work experience requirement. It's normally about 2-3 years on the job experience that has to be signed off by managers or partners or something like that anyway. But broadly speaking, they're all the same. And I was going to say it's very portable to have. Like, you can take it sort of anywhere, and it'll be recognised as a sort of, I forget what the actual level of the qualification is. It's level 7, which I think is master's degree level, but don't quote me on that. I might be wrong in that assumption.
Wonderful. So we've talked about what you like about your current position. So on the flip side, what would you say are your biggest challenges, and how do you overcome them?
Biggest challenges? It's the biggest challenge of doing the actual two at the same time. Sorry, let me start that again. The biggest challenge is actually doing them both at the same time. So it's balancing the study and the work, right? Because you've got to work 40 hours a week. In fact, sometimes a bit longer if there's deadlines. And then you've also, on top of that, got to keep on top of your exams and keep on top of everything else. So it's just managing the workload. One thing I would say that I'd want to be honest about with somebody who wanted to get into this is, at least at this level and at levels sort of below at accounts assistant level, there's a tremendous amount of just grunt work and just like filtering through spreadsheets and looking for data and just, mind-numbing raw analysis that can be sort of, if you do a lot of it, I mean, I just get fed up with it. But I will say it gets a lot less as you move up the chain. So it's worth putting in the effort.
So what would you say are the essential skills needed to work in accountancy?
A lot of people say maths. I don't think that's really true. To be honest with you, you need a rudimentary understanding of mathematics, but only to sort of GCSE level. That's pretty much it. Like, we're not doing any calculus or quantum mechanics here. We're just adding up and subtracting things. You've got to figure out what it is. An analytical mind would be useful. So anyone in STEM fields would, I think, would be really good in this. What other traits would I say are really good? Just a nose for lies as well, especially in the audit field. Because part of it's sort of the quantitative stuff and sort of the analysis, but part of it is also the qualitative and figuring out whether you can actually trust the person, trust management, and trust the person who's giving you the information, and trust the information that's coming to you. So a good nose for lies would be good.
So you've given us a really good overview there of your role and the qualifications that you're studying on the side of it. So just to give students a little bit more of an idea of what you actually do, what tell us about your day-to-day work life. So what did you do yesterday in work, or the last day you were in?
Well, yesterday I was finishing up an audit. So we'd done what generally happens on an audit as a sort of brief overview is you'll plan the audit, you'll say, this is what we're going to do. And you'll go out to the client and say, okay, you'll do all the tests, you'll check everything, which is generally very rushed, shall we say, just because it's time constrained. You're only on there for a few minutes. The client probably wants the audit done in a certain time period. And then when you get back to the office, you can sort of collate all that information and put together what we call a file, which will have all the evidence and all the balances and what they relate to. And what I was doing yesterday was sort of tying that up for the manager to review it, and then also figuring out where the gaps were in the balances we had and the information we didn't have relating to them. So putting together a list of queries we had for the client, all the information we needed. And that was, broadly speaking, half or 3/4 of my day yesterday. And then a quarter of it was also prepping for another job that I did. So that was when I finished that. And that was an accounts job, which is generally a bit quicker to do. You just have a look at all the information and figure out what you need to do in a time period, and then tell the manager how long it's going to take. And he says yes or no.
Lovely. So I know with accountancy, obviously there's a lot of technology involved in supporting your job, and we always talk to students about the future workforce and what jobs are going to look like in the future, and how you can sort of prepare a little bit for the unknown. So how do you feel accountancy will look in the future, you know, when new technologies come out, or just when time and practices move on? Have you got any predictions of what you think the field will look like in the future?
Well, it's going to become more technology based, obviously. I think it will, like a lot of sectors, I think it will render a lot of jobs on the lower end of the spectrum obsolete because of improvements to AI. Unfortunately, like a lot of the jobs on the lower end are processing invoices, just putting data, basically data entry, just putting information on a computer, which as computing gets better and better, and as AI gets better and better, somebody could just scan them in, and a computer would pick up all the information on a document and just put it on. So you'll probably lose a lot of the lower end of the spectrum, but it will also help with the higher end. So there's a new data analytics software that they're just bringing in for audits. A lot of firms are using it now, so you can just put information into it, and it'll spit you out all the analytics rather than having to enter information into a spreadsheet yourself and do all the calculations yourself. So it's streamlining things, and it's streamlining things, but it doesn't make the sort of job of the auditor or the accountant completely obsolete. I don't think it ever will, just because it's of the sort of qualitative stuff I mentioned before, of sort of judging whether somebody's lying or not, or judging whether the information you're receiving is true. Like, it's a computer can't do that. I hope a computer can't do that, because that's a weird scenario.
If we could just pick up, just interested in that theme of you saying that potentially in your role some of them may be lying, just to clear that up to students, why would that be? Is that around like financial gain, that you have to make sure people are being honest about their finances?
Yeah. Okay. So let's say somebody runs a business and they put through an expense on their in their business accounts for a Rolex watch, and that's definitely not a business expense. You can't deduct that from the revenue, because it would mean a lower profit, which means they'd pay less tax. So you have to say, okay, you can't have that. And that's part of the job. It's part of the difficulty of the job, right? Because you're getting paid by these clients to almost make their tax bill as low as possible or prepare the accounts. But you also have a fiduciary duty to the public to make sure that nobody's doing anything illegal, which is obviously this is the sort of 1% case. This is not. Yeah. This is common, but it's what they teach you about in all the exams, and it's a very hot topic. So it's worth mentioning, you know.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting, and that's where those detective skills come in, like you mentioned earlier.
Somewhat, yeah. Yeah.
So, at what point in your career journey did you decide that this is what you wanted to go into?
Oh, well, it goes back to the point I made before, really, about it's just a really good way into business. Like, you sort of look at the landscape of finance and you think, okay, well, you've got like asset management and accountancy and actuarials and all the others, and you sort of look at them and you think, which one has the sort of lowest barrier to entry that I can get into fastest, but also has the quickest route up. I always think it's accountancy, just because it's so structured and it's so, you know, you've got these set of exams you have to do. You normally get sort of like pay rises as you go up the exams, and it's just, like I said before, it's such a good grounding in business. And you can go, once you get to the top of it and you're chartered, you can just do whatever you want. You can go into all the other fields. You can go into industry and work as a finance director or a finance controller. You can do something completely different. Like, it's just a good qualification to have, and that's really why I did it.
So is that always your plan, to use this qualification as a launch pad, really? Have you always had that plan from a young age, or is it something you came to a little bit later on?
No, so I originally went to uni. I studied maths and economics at uni, but I dropped out of both of them after a couple of years, just because partly because they're really hard subjects to do, but also because I just wasn't interested in it. Like, I knew I wanted to do like either accountancy or business out of uni, but I wanted to get the degree first. And I didn't, when I was 18, I didn't make the connection that I didn't actually need a degree. I could just subvert that and just go straight to it. So that's like, if I could talk to my 18-year-old self again, I'd tell him what to do. Tell him to just go straight into it. Just don't bother with the degree, because it's not worth it. But that's just for me. That's just for sort of my field. Like, I can't speak to sort of anything else, any other thing other than sort of this very niche field of accountancy. But yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah. So you preempted my next question, because I was going to ask you what your advice to yourself would be. You preempted it there. So you would suggest really that there is the route of university, but there's also the route that you're going down, where you're just going straight for the qualifications and gain and work and experience, rather than going down that.
It's just about doing the research. Like, you've got to. One piece of advice that I didn't mention, I'd say, is like, figure out what you want to do, figure out where you want to be, and then work backwards from there. So it's like, okay, I want to be a chartered accountant. Okay, I need to do ACA, so I need to get a job in accountancy. Do I need a degree for that? Actually, no, I could just go and get a job somewhere and do that, rather than just going to university and getting a degree and thinking I'll then do something. Figure out where you want to go and then work backwards to where you are now, and figure out
what the best route for you is. No, that's sound advice there. Okay, so for the next question, I'm interested in any applications you've made, whether it be when your time on university, any part-time work you've done, or the current role that you're in now. Any applications or interviews that you've gone on. What have you done to make yourself stand out and get those positions that you wanted?
Okay, well, I have a bit of advice here, actually. CV is one page. That's a big one for me. I hate it when people have CVs of like 3-4 pages. It's like, I don't need to know that you were in dance class when you were 14. Just keep it relevant. Keep it relevant. Keep it short and sweet. One tactic that's a little bit out there that I have used in the past is writing handwritten letters to people to get yourself noticed. Because in a technological age, imagine 20 years ago or 30 years ago now, people got one email a day and 20 letters a day. Now it's the other way around. People get 20 emails and one letter a day. So if you send somebody in a position of importance, say a really nice handwritten letter that says, here's my CV, here's a little bit about my background, here's a little bit about what I want to do. I just want to talk to you. I'll buy you a cup of coffee. We'll have a chat about your industry for half an hour. It was a really good effort, really good tactic for me to get a foot in the door and get yourself noticed. That I've never had anyone else tell me that they do that. So maybe I'm doing the wrong thing by telling everyone this, but.
I love that advice. I think that's so true. If you get, it's right. If you get a letter to your door, it's like, oh, little bit different, grabs your attention.
And on top of that, if you give them a gift, it works a lot better. So I use books. You get somebody a book and you write a little bit about it and you say, I really enjoyed this for this reason. I think you'll really enjoy it. Maybe we could talk about it. But yeah, aim high. So find I don't know, if you want to do this, find a small accountancy practice and write to the managing director. And I'd guarantee you'll at least get a response back, because people, especially in higher up positions, they really appreciate that.
Yeah, just showing that you've made an effort and you've researched and about that company.
Exactly.
I really like that advice. So just to finish off, every episode of Creating Careers, we try to link careers to school subjects, to the school curriculum, to show students what the point of going to school is. Why are you sat in English, maths, history? How's that going to help you in the future? Because sometimes it's not always obvious to students why they're studying, what they're studying, and there's loads of transferable skills from every single subject across school. So taking you back to your time at school, what knowledge or skills do you think that you developed in your time at school that you still use in your life today?
Well, the sort of GCSE level maths I mentioned, that's important. Just being able to sort of add up and subtract and divide, but that's the sort of self-evident. I'd say one that maybe it isn't is English writing. I was always terrible at English. I think I got ended up with a C at English language at GCSE. But I always wish I tried a lot harder in that, just because it's such a useful skill to have, to be able to write and communicate sort of effectively. That's another one. I guess, do they have an accounting A-level now? Is that a thing? I imagine that's probably quite applicable to my field. But yeah, English, maths, and maybe accounting. But those are the basics,
Yeah. And we hear that common theme, no matter what subject or sector people are coming on to discuss. We hear that common theme of communication skills are just vital in any job role. And to be honest, they come from most school subjects that are out there. So we've come to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us and taking some time out to share your experience with the students. I know it was some really good insights there, so thank you very much. Students, don't forget, if you have any questions about anything covered in today's episode, send them into careershub@growthplatform.org and we'll get them answered for you. And don't forget to evaluate today's session, evaluate your interest in the accountancy field and the job roles that have been discussed today using our Creating Careers roadmap. Again, everything you need is in the description below. So thanks everyone for joining, and catch you on the next episode of Creating Careers. Thanks very much.
Right.